You know, the Rippaverse, we officially launched to the public in, I believe, July of 2022. Obviously, I'd been working on things long before that, and I teased it in my show for Kenan's sake, but I also discussed it elsewhere about this idea, comics and stuff that I wanted to do. And then it got to a point to where we had a finished product and we wanted to launch with it. That was ISOM number one, and the rest is history. Now, one thing that I think gets lost in this, and you probably heard me discuss this before, the Rippaverse is much bigger than I am. It's much greater than anything that can be pinned just on one individual. While I understand that because obviously I wrote the first book, I am the founder and owner of the company, you're going to associate me with the Rippaverse. But I don't want you to sort of overstate that and my involvement. More accurately, I don't want you to underestimate or understate the involvement of others. Since this thing got off the ground, actually, since it was conceptualized, it was a team effort. From the day that Marcos and I, Marcos Rios, that is, got together and we decided to start building out some designs, from the day that I began to collaborate with my social media team, I brought Caro on as well. The day that my video editors on my personal side, I reeled them in and said, hey, I would love for you to be a part of this project. And of course, from the day that I first reached out to Cliff Richards as the interior line artist, as well as Gabe El Taib, it has always been a team effort. Now, since then, we have come out with so many different titles. Believe it or not, ISOM isn't the only book that we've put out. It's not. We put out many other books, many other titles written by other writers, veterans, like Chuck Dixon, like the Soskas, Mike Barron. A little more younger in the talent. People like Andrew. And that mesh has obviously, or that collaborative effort, from that comes the Rippaverse. Look, I know I'm a little rough around the edges. I understand that. I'm totally aware of that. But one thing I want to say is when I started this company, there were two big things that I wanted to address. Number one, I had a general issue with the comic book industry as far as the mainstream content was concerned. You all know that I have been a commentator, did lore videos, reviews, positive, some not so much, about comics long before I ever did the Rippaverse. Long before I had wrote ISOM. And I went from being a person that talked about it all the time to a person that created. It was a lifestyle change. It was a content change, obviously. And as obviously the Rippaverse went on, there were some things that I needed to improve on, namely like in the name of professionalism, to ensure that the Rippaverse could, be in the best possible position, right? And from that, I let me backtrack just a little bit. Excuse me. So we have that I wanted to address. That was the first thing that we wanted to make sure that we got addressed immediately. Becoming part of the solution. That kicked things off in the first place. Talking about it, getting bored of this irritated, understanding that, look, you got a creative bone in your body, do you not? Go give it a shot and maybe talk a little less about what is going on in the industry. Why don't you step up to the plate? So I gave it a shot. Now, those issues, though I know that it's very convenient to act as if I have never talked about anything other than, let's say, the social issues that plagued comic books. Again, ahistorical. Have I talked about that? Yes. Did all of my content center around that when I griped? No. In fact, my number one gripe had to do with the continuity elements of it. I took exception to it. I could buy a book, that book becomes irrelevant a month from then because it's like it never happened. Sometimes it's even deeper than that. Those events just get completely wiped. I had issues with that. Writers getting brought along didn't seem to actually care about any of this stuff that they were writing. And to be fair, it's not like that tone was set for them, right? When you get to that level, you're just trying to put out material. And so there's not really any cohesiveness. There's no cohesiveness between those writers. It's a paid gig for them. Okay. I bring that up to say there were multiple issues. The other thing that I wanted to address when I started the Rippaverse was the economics. And that goes in multiple ways. I didn't like hearing the horror stories of these people that, let's say, the ones that were doing good things in comics. I'm not talking about the broke comic pros who hated their audience, right? Those were the ones that when we started the Rippaverse, we talk about, like, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. No longer are we worried about them. Those are the pissy broke comic pros that hated their audience and hated customers. But there were those that were in comics that did good things. A lot of artists, and they would get the short end of the stick with regards to the finances. And I took exception to that. I didn't like it. I I thought that that was something that I should do some research on. And when I looked at it, you see how much the economics, it was always on the house of cards, the American comic book industry. None of it made sense. Uh, the bigger companies, it was more welfare statism. I don't want to say welfare statism. You get what I'm saying. It's not welfare statism, but it acts out as almost a welfare state for creatives because really they're the only ones that can afford to pay the way that they do while also, if at all, barely scraping by. And that's because they were attached to mega corporations. So it had a way of masking the stank. But none of that made sense. As I did more research, just the production models, none of it made sense to me. So I said, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I knew that this was gonna blow up the way that it did, because it didn't. You don't think that the Rippaverse made mistakes along the way? We had things that we tried to do that maybe didn't work so much. We knew that that was gonna happen. And we had to make an adjustment when that stuff came about. But I wanted to at least ensure that my people were paid, ensure that all of the people that were attached to the Rippaverse, contractors, employees, everybody working in comics, for us, were taken care of. The other side of that is in the more parallel sense when discussing economics. My thing is this: we all, maybe you don't all, but a lot of us that talk about culture understand the importance of it. I like to think it's very important. It is one of the more neglected things. Typically, if you land on the economic right, you're someone that values like capitalism and things of that nature. Typically speaking, you get so involved in think tanks, politics, things of that nature. Really, really heavy on the politics as basically a solution for everything. And oftentimes, culture becomes secondary. Culture becomes not even secondary. It's not even a thing, a point of emphasis. In some cases, they outright will crap on the importance, how vital the culture is and subcultures. In 2020 and beyond, especially, yes, it started before then for sure, but you saw a big time acceleration. Cancellations happening top to bottom, all across the board, across industries. People losing their gigs, people losing their jobs for daring to have an opinion that they didn't like that was maybe against the status quo at the time. Some of the people that worked for the Rippaverse were canceled. And that's why they were free agents in the first place. You know, that was a big reason why we started the Rippaverse and why we wanted to expand. Because, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. It's the best way that I could possibly word this. But the economic right needs safe havens economically. It doesn't really have any. In pretty much every industry, if your employer finds out that you have, and I'm not talking about some of the more egregious like crap posting. I'm not saying that. Even mild opinions, they'll get you out of there. And that has been part of the course for the last decade. I have stressed the importance of the parallel economy or parallel economics, because I understand that if we're going to get on the other side of whatever this is, we're going to need entrepreneurs. We're going to need creators. We're going to need businesses that can really shield their employees and the people that work for them from the economic. How do I say this? The economic response that's going to generally come from the left, if this makes sense, because they are obviously pro cancellation big time, and they're very aggressive. And when you don't have many businesses that, at least that was the assumption, that there's not enough business. However many you think that may be the case, that's your up for dispute or whatever. But it's not enough. I think we all agree, where people feel comfortable that I can be myself. I can have my opinions. Not anything particularly egregious. Again, we're not talking about advocating for violence. We're not talking about advocating for immoral things. I'm just saying like having opinions and be able to still go home, take care of your family. That's important. And that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we were able to do in growing this company, which is why I continue to emphasize this thing goes well beyond me. It's not about me. In fact, it goes well beyond me. I'm just the guy that started this thing off. This thing, if Lord willing, customers willing, and this is why I appreciate you guys so much, that this thing outlives me. Um, I just want it to have that vision forever. Not to say that we're not going to be, that we're going to be perfect. We're not. Not to say that there won't be mistakes made along the way. Not to say that there won't be a book that maybe some people dislike. Obviously, that's going to happen. But at minimum, if we are doing the best that we can for our customers, we are not only serving them with material that's made by people that don't hate them, we also have the infrastructure in place to be able to bring on and hire and employ people that just want to be themselves, do their best work, and go back to their families every day happy and well off, doing well for themselves. That is very, very important to me. Very, very important. And it's why I work so hard. I think everybody can speak to that knows me. Endless nights, mornings early. I'm just working hard all the time to do good for you as the customers and to do good for my contractors and employees. it is way bigger than me. And that's the truth about this whole thing. Every purchase, every item that you buy may seem like it's insignificant because you pick up an $8 magazine and you're like, well, it's just a little something for my entertainment. That stuff goes a very long way. Whether you know it or not, every single purchase goes a long way. It helps employ people and in multiple fields there. Yes, we have the creative aspect and we have people that handle all that, the artwork and the stuff that's front facing, the reason why you're getting that stuff, the writers. But we also have people that help day to day. We got administrators. We have social media. People on the more back office side. Accountants. People on the warehouse side. You know, that's more blue collar, right? People that are working extra hard to get your stuff out there. You are helping employ them, believe it or not, but in buying an $8 magazine. It goes such a long way and it goes well beyond. And I'm not trying to say that the other stuff isn't important. It's exactly the opposite. I know that unless we are taking care of the business on the creative stuff, none of this other stuff happens anyway. But I just want you to understand just how important it is and how much bigger this is than me. You get guys that are under some moronic impression, and it is moronic. It's stupid, and I don't know if it's coming from their lack of understanding of business, their lack of understanding of economics, or just really their lack of understanding with the Rippaverse. There are people that think because you see a high dollar amount that I'm just pocketing that. That's not how any of this works. Everybody that's part of the process has to get paid. Our employees obviously are getting paid from this. The contractors, though, they get their money before we ever sell it. They got their money that's associated with this, especially for the future content, right? We do want to continue to contract them, do we not? The printers, the manufacturers, all of those guys that are part, getting something from that. I am the last person that sees a dime from anything with the Rippaverse. It goes bigger than me, which is why it is kind of interesting that there are those that, look at myself and they're like, man, I don't like him for various reasons. There are people that are out there, they fix their minds to believe that I'm a person that I am not. They needed a boogeyman, so they got one, and whatever position that they need me to have, they will justify saying whatever they want about me because they believe that I have a position or they believe that I am this type of person. But one thing people need to understand with the Rippaverse, whether you like me or dislike me, totally irrelevant to the fact, this is bigger than me. There are even more stories that we put out that I didn't write versus the ones that I did. It goes well beyond me. And that's why I appreciate my customers so much. To be able to give people well-paying jobs is something that is, for me, fulfilling. I can't say that about everybody. Some people hate their jobs. I love what I do here. But one of the more fulfilling aspects is actually I'm the last one to get paid. I can find other revenue streams, do the show now. Find other revenue streams to take care of myself and my family while the Rippaverse is its own entity, and the people that are really lining their pockets up are the folks that are, working hard to ensure that you get the best products that we can give you, the best books that we can give you, the best posters, the best everything, stories, the best everything. That's what it's about. It's way bigger than me, and folks just need to understand that.